Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. You're watching In Deep on the Delta, and this is the weekly Delta Fishing Report for the week of September 30th. And let's start off with a little business this week. I want to let everyone know that I am going to be out of town. I'll be fishing the Wild West Team TOC down in Don Pedro this week and through the weekend. So I'm going to really rely on your reports coming in this week for next week's report. I will get out, I will be home Monday the 4th, so I'll probably get out and get a day or two of fishing in here on the Delta to help with my report, but I'm usually out here a little bit more. So for you guys that have been going out sending in the reports, thank you. Keep them coming in, and if you haven't sent in a report yet, this is a great week to send it in. I read them all, and it's going to really help me, especially on the report for, I guess it's October 7th. That's going to be important that I get as many reports as I can. I'll also be checking in with all of the shops and everything. So that's one thing. Oh, and also I'm going to be out of tune with my computer. So those of you who are corresponding with me through the internet, give me a few days until next week. When I get back, I will answer all your questions. I'll respond to you guys with anything we need to get cleared up. But give me a few days to get back and respond to you guys. With that, let's get right into the report. And it's all good. Stripers, largemouth, everything is going well. It's not on fire, but it's steady. And this is the time that pretty much anyone can go out here and find some action. The water temperatures are dropping. Last week they were starting off in the morning around 73 to 75. This morning it was 70 degrees, so I imagine we've got about a 3-degree temperature drop this week, water temperature drop, and down to 70 degrees, and it's going to steadily go down, and that's really helping improving the bite. I think everybody seems to be catching fish. So with that, the only other thing that I would like to report is water clarity is a little bit varied out here. Most of it's 3 to 5 feet, 6 feet. Some of the sloughs actually have been pretty darn clear, 6 or 7 feet. But out around the channel, lots of reports of kind of these big mud lines going through, and nobody knows what's going on. If they're dredging somewhere, or we're getting some kind of oddball tides or something that's pushing a lot of dirty water through, you know, more out by the channel. But if you find that dirty water, that's one thing you probably want to stay away from. It's almost like a chocolate brown. We're kind of looking in, investigating to see if they're doing some work out here somewhere. They're doing some dredging or something. But anyhow, stay away from that real dirty water, and any other thing that you find out here, you're going to be just fine. The other thing that I will say is for stripers or largemouth, the last couple weeks I fished from Sacramento basically to Tracy and everywhere in between, and what I have found is that there's no real change in the fishing. No place has been super hot, no place has been dead. So my suggestion, whether you're going striper or largemouth, you know, fish your local waters, and you're going to find fish around there. It doesn't really pay to do a lot of trailering thinking you're going to find a honey hole somewhere. The fish are all out here, and they're spread out quite a bit. So let's start off with striper, and we'll start off with Jeff Suhu from his report from Suhu Sport Fishing. And as usual, Jeff is on the fish. He's said that he's had to deal with quite a bit of wind this week, so he's running to protected areas. He's fishing 5 to 20 feet of water, that clear green water that's moving, and he's using live bait, and he's not having a whole lot of trouble finding fish. He's fishing primarily on the San Joaquin side. Fish are spread out, and Jeff knows the water real well, so he's probably going to be finding a lot more fish than most of us that are you know, kind of hopping around and hoping a lot of times. But they're out there, and find the protected water 5 to 20 feet deep. As long as it's nice and green and clear, you're probably going to find fish sooner or later. Just keep popping around. Haps Bait is saying the same thing. Not a lot of reports from Haps Bait this week, because generally when the wind comes up there, they are getting fewer and fewer reports, because that Rio Vista area is a pretty windy area. I was up there and fishing for largemouth bass a few days ago, and I saw a lot of guys trolling, and I saw a lot of nets going up, so they're catching fish out there. Hook, line, and sinker and Outdoor Sportsman, all of their customers are talking about going out and catching fish. Most of the people that I see are trolling. I do see a lot of guys out there bait fishing, but I just don't think it matters. Whatever you like to do, get out there, find your spots, and move around until you find some fish, and you're going to catch some stripers. With that, we'll get right into the largemouth bass situation. And again, the bite is on. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you're out here and you're moving around, you're throwing one of about 5 or 6 baits, and we'll talk about those baits, you're going to catch fish. As far as getting out here super early in the morning or staying super late, yeah, there's a little bit of a bite. I was out super early this morning, and I think I got three early fish. It just, for me, wasn't worth getting up super early to get out here. So the more important thing is getting out and putting in hours on the water. The bite windows have been longer, but in between the bite windows, it's still very tough. As long as the tide is moving, it seems like the fish are biting, but it doesn't matter if it's an incoming, start of the incoming, the outgoing, end of the outgoing, whatever tide it is, you never know when those fish are going to be really perking up. A month ago we could say, man, you hit that high tide, when it starts moving out, you're going to catch fish. It's not like that. The fish can bite at any time, on any tide, as long as the tide is moving. So it's more important to stay out here and fish through the tide or 2 tides. A lot of the people that are giving me the really good reports are saying, yeah, we got out about 7 or 8 in the morning and we fished till 5 in the evening. That is a long day, but what those people are experiencing is fishing through a couple of tides, and sooner or later, even when they're hitting these slow areas, they're getting some fish. Now you're going to have to wade through a lot of small fish, good numbers, a lot of dinks, a lot of, I won't call them quality fish, but fun fish between 1.5 pounds and 2.5 pounds. There are pretty good numbers of fish in that 2.5 to 3.5 to 4 pounds. And if you hang around long enough, you're going to get surprised by a 5 or 6 pound fish. And we got a few pictures that will show you for some of the guys that have been getting the bigger fish. Now, here's the deal on the baits. My numbers bait in the last couple weeks has been a jerk bait, and if you keep a jerk bait on, you're going to catch fish. I know a lot of guys are going back to frogging. Frogging was a little light for a while, but I'm getting a lot of reports guys are catching fish on frogs. They're also catching fish punching, and those are some of the bigger fish coming punching. But if you're not pre-fishing for a tournament, or you're not out looking for a big fish, I would suggest sticking to the crankbaits, chatterbaits, and jerk baits. And you don't have to have 20 rods on deck. When I'm talking about fishing chatterbaits, jerk baits, crankbaits, if you love fishing all 3 of those, keep all 3 of those on the deck. If you're not a big crankbait fisherman, but you like jerk baits, or vice versa, just keep that jerk bait on. Keep it moving. You need that on your deck. You need a topwater on deck. There's 3 topwater baits that everyone's been talking about. One's been a frog, so if you love frogs, keep a frog on. But whopper ploppers have seemed to be catching a lot of fish, and they've been catching some big fish, and also spooks and walking baits. Again, you don't need all 3 of them on. If you have a favorite one, put on a walking bait and stick with that. Plastics have been catching fish. T-rigged worms have been catching fish, and also drop shots. Again, you don't have to have both of them on, but one or the other. So if you keep on a moving bait, whether it's a crankbait, chatterbait, or jerk bait, you keep on a topwater bait, whopper plopper, frog, or a walking bait, and then a couple of plastics. If you're going to punch, go ahead and punch. Those are 4 rods you need on deck. You don't have to have 20 rods on deck. Just keep rotating through, fish the water that's in front of you, and you're going to do just fine. Make sure you don't lose confidence during those slow periods. fish through them, it's probably due because you're at a time of the tide where the fish aren't biting, and if you just can fight through those, you're going to catch fish. I also want to just say one other thing that Jeff Suhu from Suhu Sport Fishing told me. And I asked him what tide he was catching them on. He said, forget about the tide. The fish are going to feed all the time. They're going to feed better at certain times, in certain tides. But, go out there and just fish. Everybody talks about fishing the right bait, but nobody out here talks about how to set that bait up, especially here on the Delta where a lot of us use braid to mono. There's a lot of different ways you can set up, a lot of different lines you can use, and a lot of different combinations to make the complete system. And that's what I'm going to be talking about, not just the knots and the lines and the leaders, but also choosing the right rod with the right bait and the right leader to make the whole setup. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And man, I thank you guys for watching. I can't believe every week I'm getting 2,500 3,000 people watching the report. Makes me feel like I'm not out here talking to the camera. So thank you guys, and hope you have good luck next week, and we'll see you on the water.